Scripture explanations. Jesus' interpretation of several different Bible passages. The second chapter. Initiate, continuation. A good rule, an objection and its rebuttal. Written down through Jacob Lorber on the 21st, 12th of 1843. Someone will say here, that is completely true. One can only harvest the true fruit of his readings when he truly reads seriously and acts accordingly afterwards. But if one is offered so much material, he can put it aside in favor of active deeds and only read so much at the time of which he is convinced to be able to put it into practice. Just think of the great quantity of what was given in the scriptures of the Old and New Testament, alongside the large amount of truly spiritual and explanatory books. If one would read it all only to the degree of which he will act accordingly afterwards, indeed, one would barely finish a few chapters throughout his lifetime. But I say, considering the matter from this standpoint, the objector is probably right indeed, because if you only read so much and then no longer want to read, as one is convinced to truly be able to act accordingly, then there would a few chapters be too much. But looking at this matter from another point of view, the given material is never too much, and the reader can immediately convert everything he has read into reality. One could, for example, also say, if a farmer owns a big field with good soil, which provides him with 100-fold harvest, why then does he sow upon the entire field? 1/10 of the same is enough to satisfy the need of the farmer. But I ask you, if this farmer sows on the entire field with good grain seeds, and then the field brings him 100-fold harvest, 1/10 of it enough to satisfy his needs, would the other 9/10 be harmful to him? Of course not. Half of the abundance he can distribute to the needy people, which will surely be extremely grateful to him, and the other half of the abundance he can bring to the market. And because it is a good crop, he will find many buyers who will take it from him at expedient prices. And with the money he gained, he can organize his other household, and he will become a respectable and wealthy farmer. Now behold, in this example we can clearly see, if anyone's got a good piece of land and has large quantities of good seeds, he should not sow sparingly. Whoever sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. But who sows sparingly will reap sparingly. And what is needed for that? Only that the soil of the land has been well prepared, and then you may sow as many seeds as you want on that field. And no good grain will perish on that soil. Instead, every grain will shoot its abundant straw. So it is also in this case, which concerns the spiritual sowing of the word through reading. To prepare the spiritual soil, man only needs the 2 commandments of love. With these, he prepares his spiritual field very easily. Once the field has been prepared, everyone can sow as much as he wants on that field, or he can read as much of the given material as he can get in any fair quantity. The entire Holy Scripture and all the explanations regarding it, and he won't absorb any of this without receiving an abundant harvest through it. Because the difference between the infertile and fertile reading lies in this. If any man wants to prepare and awaken himself by the sheer reading, it's about the same undertaking as sowing all seeds onto an unprepared, unfertilized and unplowed field. Won't there, shortly afterwards, the birds arrive from the air and eat a big part of the seeds in a short time? And will the small amount which has fallen beneath the weed of the field not soon thereafter be choked by it, so that At the end of the harvesting season, there won't be one single grain visible which shut its abundant straw. When the sower or the reader does not see any harvest of his labor, won't he become discontented and curses his field and all the sown seeds which yielded no harvest for him after all? In plain German, such people will then become incredulous, and they are falling away from the whole good thing, and in the end, they believe it's a pure deception. But it is completely different. If one has made his spirit alive, or rather, it was made alive by me, through his true love for me and his neighbor, and by that he has fertilized and plowed his field properly, thereafter he will not read the scripture of my grace and mercy to prepare his field first and become a good soil. No, he's reading it to see me, who has awakened his spirit through his love for me, from face to face, and to continually hold more and more, and possibly to grow even more in his love for me, and as a result of this also towards his brother. In this case, will he not recognize every word from me being alive and eternally true, if he is already alive within himself? But if he is not first alive within, won't there even the most living word die within that man? Throw gold coins into a smelly puddle, and the gross, sulphurous puddle will dissolve the gold pieces and turn them into the same filthy mud. But on the contrary, throw any precious metals into a real gold tincture, and they will, in the end, become equal to the precious gold. Look, it's the same in this case right here. Through the reading of my word, as well as by listening to it, every man can acquire an immense gain for himself and his brothers, if he has previously converted himself into a gold tincture by heeding the two laws. But if he is still a puddle, no amount of gold coins thrown into it will turn it, the puddle, into a gold tincture. As the saying goes, whosoever has, to him it shall be given more, so that he shall have an abundance. But whoever does not have, from him it shall be taken, even what he has. Matthew 13:12. With have, the following is meant: to be in possession of a good, fertilized and plowed field, or to be a perfect vessel within oneself, full of genuine and true gold tincture, which is a free living spirit. With not have, the following is meant: scattering seeds on an unprepared field, by which the sower cannot expect any harvest, but rather is also losing the seeds he has sown, which also means to be a grossly sulphuric puddle within oneself, which can not only never be converted into a gold tincture by throwing some gold coins into it, but rather all the gold that has been thrown into it will also be lost on top of that. I mean, this should be quite clear by now, or whoever does not see the truth even in the light of this torch. This one will probably never get rid of his low vision. But, as already said, the blind man can never have too much light. So will I, during the end of the gift of this sun, put together the light of all central suns towards one single point, so that in that most intense light one can see much clearer, who actually, in earnest, is completely blind. Therefore, some more recollection soon.